From August 3, 2022 to January 16, 2023, the town of Soledar, once a quiet salt mining center in the Donetsk region, was plunged into one of the most ferocious battles of the conflict. It was not a capital city, a major military base, or a recognized political symbol. Yet its fall precipitated a dramatic shift in the operational landscape around the key city of Bakhmut. This small town, previously receiving little attention on the grand strategic map, became a critical tactical turning point in the Donbas campaign at the close of 2022. The central question is not simply who won, but why this seemingly minor location held such immense military significance. To understand the battle for Soledar is to understand the grim mechanics of modern attrition warfare and its profound impact on the larger struggle for the Donbas. The strategic context for the battle began to form in the summer of 2022. Following the capture of Lysychansk in July, Russian forces had secured control over the entirety of the Luhansk region. However, their subsequent offensive momentum into Donetsk had perceptibly slowed. The Ukrainian military had established a formidable defensive line running through the cities of Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, and Bakhmut, effectively halting the eastward advance. By August, the front had settled into a grinding stalemate, with both sides consolidating their positions. In this environment, Russian commanders sought to create a localized breakthrough, a crack in the Ukrainian defenses that could be exploited to regain the initiative. The Wagner Group, a private military company, was increasingly tasked with executing high-risk, high-cost assaults on heavily fortified positions that regular army units were reluctant to attack. Soledar, positioned just north of Bakhmut, found itself squarely in the path of this new offensive exusa secondary, yet crucial component of the broader push to encircle the Bakhmut stronghold. The strategic value of Soledar was threefold, derived from its unique combination of geography, logistics, and subterranean features. First, its terrain offered a significant tactical advantage. The town is situated on high ground relative to the surrounding area north of Bakhmut. Control of these heights would allow an attacking force to establish fire control over Ukrainian positions and create a flanking threat against the main defensive line protecting Bakhmut. This would force Ukrainian defenders to divert resources and attention away from the direct southern and eastern approaches to the city. Second, Soledar's location gave it immense logistical importance. It sits astride key roads that formed the northern supply artery for the Ukrainian garrison in Bakhmut. Capturing Soledar would allow Russian forces to interdict this vital route, gradually strangling the flow of reinforcements, ammunition, and supplies into Bakhmut. Without this northern channel, the city's defense would become significantly more precarious. Finally, beneath the town lay an extensive network of salt mines, a vast subterranean complex with tunnels and chambers descending tens of meters underground. These mines offered exceptional conditions for military operations. They could serve as fortified command posts, ammunition depots, and troop shelters, all protected from artillery and aerial bombardment. For a defending force, the mines could facilitate secure movement between positions and provide a bastion for a protracted defense. For an attacker, they represented a prize that, once secured, could serve as a forward operating base for subsequent advances. Soledar was never the ultimate objective in itself. Rather, it was a vital springboard. Its capture was a necessary precondition for launching a more comprehensive assault on Bakhmut and unhinging the entire Ukrainian defensive posture in the central Donbas. The initial phase of the battle, from August to October 2022, can be characterized as a period of exploratory attacks. During these months, the fighting around Soledar was of low to medium intensity. Wagner units conducted a series of methodical, small-scale advances, probing the town's defenses neighborhood by neighborhood. They did not commit to a large-scale, decisive assault, but instead focused on a gradual, creeping advance. In response, Ukrainian forces mounted a flexible defense, ceding ground in some areas while launching localized counterattacks in others. They did not attempt to hold every single building at all costs, understanding that this was not yet the main effort. This phase was less about capturing territory and more about a grim process of reconnaissance and preparation. For Wagner, it was an opportunity to map out the Ukrainian defensive network, identify structural weaknesses in their lines, and test the resilience of their fire positions. For both sides, it was a period of attriting the opponent and preparing the battlefield. for the brutal escalation that was anticipated with the onset of winter. As winter descended upon the Donbas in November, the nature of the battle for Soledar transformed dramatically. Wagner committed significantly larger forces to the fight, escalating the conflict into a full-scale, high-intensity assault. Their tactics centered on relentless close-quarters infantry combat. They employed human wave-style attacks, sending small, dispersed groups of soldiers forward in continuous succession. This approach was designed to overwhelm Ukrainian defensive positions through sheer numbers, accepting staggeringly high casualties as the price for incremental gains. The goal was to exhaust Ukrainian defenders and their ammunition supplies, forcing them to cede ground under the sheer weight of constant, unrelenting pressure. In the face of this onslaught, Ukrainian forces leveraged their well-prepared defensive positions, entrenched within the urban landscape and the salt mine complexes. They inflicted immense losses on the attacking formations, turning the streets of Soledar and the surrounding fields into a killing ground. However, the defenders were subjected to constant, around-the-clock pressure, leaving little to no time for rest, resupply, or reorganization. The battle degenerated into a pure war of attrition, where success was measured not in kilometers gained, but in the enemy's body count and the slow erosion of their will to fight. The decisive moment of the battle, the flashpoint that sealed Soledar's fate, arrived in early January 2023. After months of grinding combat, Wagner forces had managed to secure control over the eastern and northern sectors of the town. This advance effectively fragmented the Ukrainian defense, breaking it into isolated pockets of resistance. More critically, it allowed Wagner to establish fire control over the remaining supply lines into Soledar, making any attempt to reinforce or resupply the garrison an extremely perilous undertaking. The vast salt mine system, once a formidable defensive asset, now became a liability. Instead of providing a secure bastion, the subterranean network transformed into a trap, confined space that was increasingly enveloped from multiple directions. At this stage, continuing to hold Soledar offered no further operational value for the Ukrainian command. Attempting to do so would have risked the complete encirclement and destruction of the experienced troops defending the town, a loss the Ukrainian military could ill afford. The tactical calculus had shifted irrevocably. The cost of holding the town now far outweighed any potential benefit. On January 16, 2023, the Russian Ministry of Defense officially declared that its forces, led by Wagner units, had established full control over. The Ukrainian military command acknowledged the withdrawal of its forces from the town, describing it as an organized retreat to pre-prepared defensive lines to the west. The conclusion of the battle did not result in a large-scale encirclement of Ukrainian troops or a catastrophic collapse of the defensive front, as some had feared. Instead, the defenders conducted a phased withdrawal under fire, preserving the bulk of their combat power. The fall of Soledar represented a clear tactical victory for the Russian side, one of their few unambiguous successes on the battlefield during a period otherwise defined by operational stalemate. However, it was not the strategic breakthrough that would collapse the entire Donbas front. It was a victory, but a localized and costly one. In assessing the campaign's outcome, the battle for Soledar yielded distinct results for both combatants. For Russia and the Wagner Group, the capture of the town provided a crucial bridgehead north of Bakhmut, enabling them to intensify pressure on the city from a new axis. It also delivered a tangible victory that could be used for propaganda purposes, boosting morale after a series of setbacks elsewhere on the front. Furthermore, the battle solidified Wagner's reputation as a force capable of succeeding in brutal, high-casualty urban warfare, reinforcing its prominence within the Russian military effort. For Ukraine, the loss of Soledar was a significant blow, marking the forfeiture of a critical defensive hub. Yet the protracted defense of the town had served a vital strategic purpose. By drawing Wagner forces into a grueling month-long battle of attrition, Ukrainian defenders inflicted massive casualties on one of Russia's most effective fighting formations, bleeding them of manpower and resources. This costly delay bought valuable time for Ukraine to fortify its defenses in and around Bakhmut, preparing the ground for the even larger and more consequential battle that was to come. Soledar did not decide the fate of the Donbas, but it decisively shaped the battle for Bakhmut. Ultimately, Soledar was not Mariupol, a strategic port city whose fall had vast implications. Nor was it Bakhmut, the fortress city that would become the epicenter of the entire war. Yet, military history will remember the battle for this small salt mining town as the event that opened the door to the most brutal phase of attrition warfare witnessed in the Donbas. The ferocity of the fighting and the tactics employed set a grim precedent for the months that followed. After Soledar fell, the battle for Bakhmut was no longer a peripheral engagement on the Eastern Front. It was transformed into the central, all-consuming focus of the entire conflict. From the ruins of this small town, the war entered a new and more punishing phase, one defined by grinding advances, staggering losses, and a protracted struggle that would be measured in meters, not kilometers. Soledar was the beginning, not the end, of a new chapter of devastation.